custom live streaming
It's
service.
working. It's trying to go live. It's trying to go live.
I'll verify it on my thing to make sure that it's if it goes on Facebook.
Okay.
You're putting it on the Magic Mondays account, or are you putting it on yours?
I'm putting it on the Magic Mondays account.
I haven't gotten any notifications.
Oh, okay. I see that it's
Yep, we got it.
There. So that's good. Looks like we're live. Okay, I have no idea about the Facebook. It says it's up. It's actually showing the new notification that it's up, but I have no idea where to find that. Facebook, it says it's up. It's actually showing the new notification that it's up. Okay, and it's live on, we're live on YouTube, and Facebook is saying that we're live. Ask me where, oh, there it is. I found it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've got it in the house. Magic Mondays, YouTube live, Facebook live, TikTok live. Woo!
We're on
Welcome
everything
today,
live. Everything
as
live.
always, I'm your host, Neil D'Souza, with my man, Jason Vaz.
What's up?
And Marlon Yeeman.
What's up? What's up?
Great to have you guys today. All right. So, we're doing this for everyone watching. Who knows how this one goes? We're not stream savvy, technical, any of that kind of stuff, but we're going to be coming to you live today. We're talking about cryptocurrency, and I know you tuned in to check out that, but we're going to, before we get into that, what do we need to talk about that's going on in the world? Wait, before we go any further, Marlon, do I need to wear my mask? How are you feeling?
You're good.
Today?
You're feeling much better. Feeling much better this week.
All right.
We got the hand sanitizer on deck. Do I need to pull it out to prove it to you?
Yo, right here. Right
That's
here,
how
baby.
sick last week's show was.
On deck.
All right, great. So, all right, what do you guys want to talk about before we jump into crypto? Anything you guys want to throw out there?
It's crazy. If you're in Southern Ontario, you already know real estate market's nuts. And it just seems like every week it's more and more nuts. And that's what kind of brought us into this whole discussion about cryptocurrency, because on that side, it seems to be nuts as well. But differently. We've got ups and downs on that end. Here we get news kind of throwing in there. So we thought, hey, let's merge the two together and find out, how does this work? Like, how do these two, is there room for both to exist?
Okay, you're already tantalizing us with cryptocurrency. Okay, before we jump into the cryptocurrency, let me ask you guys about this, because I saw this was something interesting. Someone was talking about how, or many people are saying, well, we're not seeing any inflation right now. Meanwhile, one of my friends, followers, whatever, was talking about, and they called it shrinkflation. And what they're saying is, yeah, maybe you're not seeing inflation in quite the same ways that it's in the history books and textbooks, but you're seeing it in things like at Costco. If you go to buy a package of paper towels, that package of paper towels, instead of having 160 in the roll, it's got 140 or 120, and they're charging you the same price. So what we're seeing right now is manufacturers are actually dropping what they're providing to you, but they're charging you the same so that you don't notice it. And so, in fact, inflation is occurring.
I'd like to kind of counter that, because that's not new. That's nothing new.
Yeah, that's not new.
Cereal companies were doing that, where what they were doing was they were keeping the cereal boxes from on one angle looks the exact same, but they were making them thinner so they actually hold less. This is something we've seen over decades. It's not always a case where one equals the other. Companies are always going to try and cut costs so that they can increase their bottom line. I will say I have noticed a couple.
At some point, we're all going to have just the small cereal boxes, and
what are you talking about? No, we're going to get those little dime baggies with 3 Cheerios in them.
Well, we've seen the same kind of thing even on the real estate side for the pre-construction condos, right? Okay. I mean, over the years, we've seen the condos get smaller and smaller, right? In order to maintain that price and that affordability, they still had to, condos starting at $3,999. We've seen that forever, right? But what size is the condo, right? So. And inflation, I don't know, man. The price of lumber is going crazy these days. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's a supply and demand thing. You know,
Yeah.
we're paying what, $9 a 2x4 right now.
Yeah.
Last year was 3.
Yeah. That's
There was
huge.
an interesting study that showed, I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but there's a study that showed $50,000 worth of lumber. What does that build? And it said before COVID, that built about just over 20 homes. Now it's just over 2 homes. Or it might have been 10.
Massive.
It might have been 10. Sorry.
Yeah.
I might be getting it wrong, but drastically less. And we're going to see this in the building. Like, builders aren't going to take a loss. Let's just face it. They'll build it into the cost. They'll charge the consumer more. But it's like, what is a commodity? You know, commodities are supposed to go up. Uh, there has to be some stabilization, and there's a reasonable explanation as to why wood's gone up. It was the supply chain got interrupted. It'll take a couple years to correct itself. The problem that I see with it is that there's still a building boom. So if people are willing to pay a price, it kind of shows that the free market's okay with $9 a 2x4. I don't think it's going to go back down to its $3 a 2x4. I think we might settle around $5 or $6, and I think people will be fine with it. Because right now, if we said, "Hey, I got 2x4s for $5," we'd sell out before I finish the sentence.
Well, when it comes to physical things like that and lumber and that, if they go out and go, "Hey, look, we're getting these kind of prices on lumber, right? On these kind of prices on these items," and then they start finding more supply increases, right? If you're able to get supply to increase, you'll start seeing more and more until they start stockpiling, and then they have to run in reverse and go, "Oh, okay, we got too much. We've gone too much." And you see that in with most things, whether it be metals, price of copper goes up, they start digging more and more of it. You know, gold, any of these kind of things, lumber, you name it, they start stockpiling it at some point. Oil, we see it in oil, everything, right? When prices go up, they start, "Oh, we got to get more out there," until there's so much supply that they end up, the price starts coming back down to something more reasonable, maybe even advantageous sometimes.
So we're talking about asset classes. We're talking about commodities. We're talking about this. I think
Yes, we just kind of subtly moved into that, did we?
We did.
All right.
We did. Quite subtle.
Okay, come on. All right, guys. Jason's revving to go to talk about crypto. Revving to go.
Alrighty. So we want to chat, as we've all seen, guys. Sure, you've seen it in the news. It seems like every day your news feed is about like Dogecoin, Bitcoin. You know, anything you can think of, just blank, fit a coin back in. That they got something for it. Marlon mentioned one that I won't say for our viewers, but it was an interesting name.
I'll talk about that later.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. But the reality is that I'd like to bring us back to when cryptos were first being introduced, and what was the fundamentals behind it. And the idea then was that it was an alternate currency that allowed you to transfer money from point A to point B extremely effectively, cheaply, you know, quicker. And that's what its basis was. Now it just seems to be traded as a speculative asset class. And a lot of our investors are coming and saying, "Okay, well, why should I take my $50,000 and put it as a down payment on a property when I can use it and I can buy a Bitcoin and it could double tomorrow?" And that's where we want to see, is like, how does this fit in the same world? Will we see a world where people can utilize a crypto to purchase a home? Are these comparable assets? Like, is this really the future, or is it just a speculative bubble that we're seeing because of the lockdown? There's been more influence. So you have seen heavier investment in other sectors due to the lockdown, and it may completely turn away once things are opened up again. So that's what we want to discuss today, is like, where does crypto fit into the real estate market?
Okay, so before we really go down that rabbit hole too far, Marlon, can you tell us a little bit about cryptocurrency, what we're looking at? What is that for the old guys like myself? Just fill us in a little bit on.
Well, you know, I am by no means a cryptocurrency expert. You know, I did my own little research. I am a financial advisor, so I look at things from a financial perspective. You know, obviously there is a marketplace for cryptocurrency. I do see it as an asset class, although some may defer that it's not. But I believe if there's a marketplace for something, you can trade it, and there's opportunities for buys and sells. To me, that's an asset class. The problem I see with this asset class, or the challenge, I should say, it's not a problem, is that it's still in its infancy stages, right? I mean, we're talking about huge infancy stages. We've seen a massive consolidation or sell off lately. I think that was due, just like if you just look at it in any market, you have to consolidate in order to move higher again, right? I think what really shows that what the market's immature, and Jason and I were talking about this earlier, is, Elon Musk tweets about Bitcoin and, the thing goes either way bonkers, right? That's kind of odd. Elon doesn't make Bitcoin. He doesn't make, blockchain. He makes cars and technology, right?
Mhm.
Whereas, Jerome Powell, who's the head of the US Federal Reserve, he can tweet about interest rates or whatever, and the markets move. But that's because he controls the money supply in the US. Elon makes cars and technology. So the fact that the market's bouncing like this just shows just how speculative it is and how bubbly it is. And, it has a long way to go in terms of consolidating. Last thought, altcoins, I think that's really what Jason is talking about, like Dogecoin, whatever coin. There's even a Shiba Inu coin now. And believe it or not, I hate to say it, there's a cum shot coin. Like, how is anyone supposed to take this thing seriously if there's something called cum shot coin? Like, I mean, that just shows how much infancy and maybe players that are in the market that shouldn't be in the market at this point, right? Which is why some people are scared.
And now all of this is on blockchain, right?
Mhm.
Which is all internet.
So yeah, so blockchain technology, I think, has some viability, but the whole coins this and coins that and all the IC initial coin offerings, that's the issue here. It's muddying the waters.
That's
Okay.
Just to add to what you said there, Marlon. I think it would be foolish for us to say that blockchain is and smart contracts aren't here to stay.
Wait, hang on. What's a smart contract?
So it's, again, not a cryptocurrency expert, so I can't speak on this from an authoritative position. And I think that's where a lot of people are. They don't really know. So forewarning. The idea of a smart contract is the idea that, like, say, Neil, you and I are buying this cup of coffee. All right. The smart contract would be, okay, I've agreed to it. And now that I've agreed to it, you are now poised to ship this cup of coffee to me or vice versa. And at that point, now money is supposed to go. So pretty much what we would normally do in a basic transaction, but it's time like this only happens once this happens. So the money only gets released from my account once I have notification that has been shipped, and the tracking number once it hits this point. It's a great system. It's really good for e-commerce. I can see huge applications for it. What we've seen in the last year and a half is that e-commerce has taken over. We could, like here in Ontario, we can only really buy food, like groceries at a store. Everything else, we have to have it shipped to our homes. I had, like, right now, I'm waiting for cleaning supplies to be shipped to my home. I don't even think to go to the store anymore. I just go on my phone, quickly put it.
Wait. I gotta stop you there, because that doesn't look like your home. What's going on?
I'm not at home. I'm up north right now. Right behind me, I don't know if you can see, it's a little bit bright, but we got a beautiful beach.
Doug Ford, where are you right now? Or I mean, this guy's
there's nobody else around me.
Home order. Meanwhile, this guy's somewhere up north. Okay, I look
the
like
earth is my home.
Palm tree in the background.
Anyway, back to the topic though. Back to the topic. The idea is that so the smart contracts would be that, hey, once Amazon starts shipping it, that's when the money gets released. That's really what it is. So yeah, that's good tech. Now, the thing is, Ethereum is kind of the internet of it all. Like it's a little bit smarter. It makes more sense for me reading it. But the coin itself is useless, in my opinion. Like the coin as a currency is completely useless. You can have $10 million in Bitcoin. What can you buy with it without liquidating it? And from what we've read here, it's extremely hard to liquidate these things. To give you an example, like if you look at it as a stock, if you had $10 million in Amazon stock, to liquidate that's not easy, because you need to find a buyer that's got $10 million to give you that. We buy one or two shares, easy to sell off. But when you sell off a block like that, it makes a ripple. Same thing goes for this stuff. Once you start selling off, the value drops. So how could you use that as a currency? I think that's why I wanted to tie in with real estate here, is that how can we use something like Bitcoin? Say if we want to buy a house. I know Neil over here he's a admirer of precious metals. So I'll use that asset class to kind of make sense of it all. Neil, could I buy a house? Say you got a $500,000 home. Could I buy that house with $500,000 worth of gold?
Ooh, okay. Technically, you could.
Yeah.
Technically, you could. Would it be easy to transact?
No.
It would not. It would not be easy to. But
That's
could you? Technically, you could.
it could.
But that's only because precious metals are considered money. They're legally listed as money in the Banking Act and
Yeah.
in the Tax Act.
But that's the thing. That's something we all agree.
Yeah,
But we may agree on it fundamentally.
we
But
agree that a bar of precious metals is actually that metal, and it's worth.
we all agree on the value of it. But now, me transactioning for you to use that to do anything but cash it in is extremely difficult. You come to the store saying, "Hey, I'd like to buy groceries. Here's a bag of silver."
Yeah, well,
They're going to be
because here's the thing: is if I show up with a bar, we have to agree on the value of this bar,
exactly.
right? And although we might agree that that value is, we have spot prices out there, and you can go, okay, well, that's what the value of it is today. But when we get into housing, and you got a set price, and the value on this is this amount today, and when you're looking to close, the value of it is a different amount. You want to mention about that?
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to. That was what I was trying to kind of segue into. There is that trading assets for assets is problematic, and that's why money, what we know right now, what they call fiat currency, makes sense. And that's why I can't really look at Bitcoin, Dogecoin, whatever you want to call them. I can't look at it as currency, because if it is going to change in value today and tomorrow, and my transaction is months away, there's a huge problem there. Because how do I structure the contract? Do I say, hey, I want $500,000 worth of Bitcoin, or do I want this many Bitcoin that today is worth $500,000? And from the buyer's perspective, what if that amount doubles tomorrow? So now you paid $1 million for a $500,000 asset. Like, how do we price this out? How do we make sense of this? And from the seller's perspective, what if it drops in value completely the next day? And we're just not seeing that with currency. Like, currency has to be inflated. It has to lose value in order for this to work. If your money was growing, if you have $10,000 in the bank and tomorrow it's worth $40,000, why would you ever use that to buy anything? It doesn't make sense. You wouldn't even buy groceries with it. So that's where I kind of look at it as I don't see, and that's where when we really look at the idea of these cryptocurrencies becoming currencies, that's the wall that they just can't break through. I know there's some talk about one Ripple that's backed up by some of the banks. Again, I try to see the practicality of it. I try to see how it can fit. If they were reprinting it, I feel like all we're doing is just creating digital money and just giving another name to it. I don't see the point. Like and the question I ask a lot of people, I said, if cryptocurrency disappeared tomorrow, what would happen to the world? Not a damn thing.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, Jason or Marlon, whoever wants to jump in about this. So if we got cryptocurrency, what if I wanted to sell my house in Dogecoin and I was agreeing to accept it in exchange? Do you guys know whether we are able to actually transact in that case? And what does the government do, right? Because you can't tax that.
No, well, this is just it. So the tax act
the land transfer.
Well, no. So there's so many ways you can do that. So short answer, yes, you can. It would come with, if I was listing your property, the amount of disclosures I'd have to put in there, I have to disclose, like saying, hey, this might be worth less tomorrow. Like, this is what you're doing. It would be so much disclosures kind of saving my ass that I don't see anyone that would continue with the transaction after that. But say you were like, hey, I still don't care. I want Dogecoin for my house. And from a buyer's perspective, they're looking, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to buy all this Doge. Then I'm going to transfer to this person and I'm going to get a house in return. And that's how we would do it. Now, you won't get taxed on the sale of your home. However, you will be taxed when you cash in that Doge. And that's what it comes down to, is that it's like trading asset classes. Like that's why I like to use the gold analogy, because the reality is gold is something we all can agree on the value. I think the value of crypto is a little bit up in the air. especially something that's changing overnight. But technically speaking, yes, you can sell your home for gold. Very difficult, but you can do it. You can always swap one asset for another. Um, I don't know if a realtor could really conduct that sale. Like the commissions and all that you have to pay on top. Like I'm trying to figure out, because I'm not accepting Doge as a method of payment.
What in the world would you do in that
we can
situation?
put a fee. We can put a fee instead, and just
Yeah.
like, hey, I'll charge you this much to process the sale. Like, there's a way around it. It just
So
wouldn't come out of the proceeds of sale.
that could really mess with the system if people started. It's almost like moving us back into a bartering or trading to some degree, because
But it's
these
not
all
foreign.
fall outside of the government's purview. They have no way to put their hands on any of this, right?
So, but Neil, it's not a foreign concept. I remember about 6 years ago, I'd seen a property that was listed, and they had two options there. You could buy it, like I can't remember the price, it might be like 400,000 or something like that. But they said, hey, 400,000 to buy it, or there's an alternative, and the alternative was the property was owned by a company. And what these guys were willing to do is that company only owned one property. That's all it did. It was a holding company. And they were allowing someone to buy the company instead and just assume ownership of the property. And the reason they were doing that was you didn't have to pay land transfer tax. Now, the thing is, you also have to have a lot of cash to do that. Most people, like a mortgage wouldn't fund that. You wouldn't get a mortgage to buy shares in a company. You can get a mortgage to buy a house. But not to fund a company. So it was a tricky one, but some form of what we were just talking about does exist. It's just about, but they've had this option for years. It's never taken off. Like the options are always there. One of the things I wanted to quickly touch on, and this is something for anyone watching that's, this is what I read during my research for this piece was, so the way a transaction is done through Bitcoin and Dogecoin and all these other things, that there's things called miners. What miners are doing is they're solving very complicated math equations to process a transaction. People aren't doing this with their calculators. No, they have systems in place with where they use computers to do so. But the reality is that whoever is controlling most of that mining controls the coin. Currently, 75% of Bitcoin's mining takes place in China, in communist China.
Wow.
So that's something to consider. So yeah, that if you want to put your hard-earned money into an asset class, I don't know how people feel about that. Like me personally, I'm a North American. I like things where I can see them. There's a bit of transparency. But when 75% of the transactions is controlled by a communist government, a little scary.
Yeah, look, if you're going to ask me about crypto and you're going to say, is this really where we want to be going? It occurs to me that the governments are actually going to say, which ones can we control? That's what they're going to want to do. And if we can't control these ones, we can just outlaw those ones, and we're going to use this crypto. I mean, it's no surprise that all the world banks are beginning to look into having their own form of cryptocurrency. Let's move off of physical dollars altogether. Why don't we get in on this? So the question becomes, what then occurs with all of these currencies, all these millionaires that are out there? I've got guys that'll tell me about how they're making millions and in cryptocurrency. And the moment I ask them, and if you're one of those guys out there, I'm going to take a shot right at you. If you're one of those guys that says, oh, I made all this money in cryptocurrency, and I say, okay, great. If you had to start out over again, now what do you do? And not a single one of them has any other answer than, oh, well, I would buy it again and, and just wait for the price to go up. There's no, so what, you're gonna take a chance that it goes up 90,000% again? Like, that's not a strategy. That's hoping and praying. Yeah. And Jesus might be backing you, but I still don't think he's backing the currency, the cryptocurrency. So
I think you hit it right on the head, Neil. Like the government, blockchain isn't going away. The concept of cryptocurrency obviously has a strong following. There are some benefits to it, but like you said, the government and the powers to be are going to pick the ones that they can control, or the ones that they can get their taxation on, or That's why I was saying, all these little altcoins you see out there and everyone's rushing in. Kind of, if you guys ever played Gold Juniors back in the day, everybody and their mom was starting a mine, back in the gold rush, and a lot, and they're called penny stocks, right? I mean, lots of people made money and lots of people lost money. And I think that's where this is going. But the technology itself is valid. And, it's just for the powers to be and the governments to be to figure out which ones work with them or which companies are going to work with them to make this profitable for their pockets, right? So
Yeah, and I think the when we look at it as an asset class as a whole, it is extremely speculative. It is completely speculative. Like it's I think you like contrary to what Marlon said there. Yeah, the tech is here. The tech is here to stay. But I think the value of the coin has outrun what the true value of the tech is. Like for example, like if it was an industry, it might be like a $10 billion industry, yet people are trading in it like it's $100 billion industry. And I think that's right. I think it's very overinflated. I truly don't see the value in it. Now when we look at real estate as an asset class, there's intrinsic value there. People need a place to live. Like we live in North America, you can't pitch a tent and live like that for around the clock. We have this beautiful thing called winter that will freeze you. So yeah, we do need shelter, and this is the thing: is that being able to hold that as an asset class has intrinsic value as well. Steady market, 6.1% appreciation year after year since 1969, and we if we could go back further, I guarantee you would say the same thing. So yeah, we're comparing the two as opposed to something that trades overnight. Like you could be sleeping and it's gone up. You have no clue.
And with real estate, you got to remember you're buying it with leverage. You're not, you know what I mean? Nobody has $50,000 to buy one Bitcoin. Maybe a couple people do, right? But do you just want one or do you want a couple? Well, real estate, you leverage, right?
Well,
and the beauty, well, one more thing. The other thing with real estate, the other thing with real estate, other than being able to leverage, is later you can refinance that asset to do other things. You can't refinance a Bitcoin. You can't. It's literally like a stock. It can go up, it can go down. And unfortunately, there's no secondary market like Neil and everyone here is pointing out.
So I want to correct you on that. That's not entirely true. You can leverage your cryptocurrency holdings. There are financial vehicles built to do so. Yet they pay you out in another coin.
Wow.
And that coin you have to cash out. So it's like it's very bizarre, and like anybody who's watching this who's invested in cryptocurrency will say no, you can leverage your thing. I said yeah, but it's not the same way. So to answer your question, you can, but not in the way that we're talking about it. However, going back to 2017 when the other rally for Bitcoin happened, people were leveraging their homes, pulling it out to buy Bitcoin.
Well, let me just take you guys for a moment to one of our to the chat on Facebook Live. We've got a question from Julian. Julian says, "What if they started to control them by making their own mining hubs?" When we were talking about China.
Oh, with China doing it?
Yeah, but he says, "What if they started to control them by making their own hubs?" Meaning, if the governments tried to make their own hubs for mining. And,
that's a good alternative. I think if Bitcoin was the one that they went to, their reserve coin, I think 100% that's where the US would go. I think it would be a lot easier for them to build their own coin and put some limitations on it, saying like it can only be mined in North America. But from my understanding, I think it was there's a certain percentage. I think it's like when you get 51%, once you do that, you control the coin. And right now, it looks like China controls Bitcoin. If that stat is true, we do know that that's where the mining is. The other thing to consider, like it's very energy intense, these things. Elon Musk actually tweeted out, like he first said we're going to accept Bitcoin for Tesla purchases, and then changed his mind and said, oh, we're not going to do it because it's bad for the environment. We're an environmentally conscious company, and now they don't accept Bitcoin because of that. And the reason being is that it's the electricity usage, the hydro usage. I don't think we can do that in North America, especially not in Ontario. Our hydro prices are too high. I don't think we can afford it on a global scale. But no, that's an interesting way. Yeah, I think that's the route that they'll end up going. I think what's ultimately going to happen is the Federal Reserve is going to make their own coin. It's basically just going to be the US dollar, just digital. And they're going to keep printing like how they always do.
Well, here's one thing I just want to point out as we wrap up here. When it comes to cryptocurrency, there's a long road still to go for it. Where there's a lot for us to see how it develops, what the governments allow with regards to it in real estate and smart contracts. We know that blockchain is basically allowing you to take that control and decentralize it. So someone can't come into another country, take over that country, and then say, hey, we own all of this, because they're literally throughout the world, there'll be record of that contract, that deed of you owning it. Will we be able to get to that point here in Canada or, in the States? Will we be able to do that? And will they want to do that? Who knows? Because you could effectively remove layers and layers and layers of administration by having something like that. But I could definitely see a use for it in real estate. And then you'd be able to literally track every single buyer, seller, all the way down. You could probably even remove a whole lot of money laundering if you're able to track all of that. So, I think this is an ongoing debate. Final 10 seconds. Jason, anything from you?
My 2 cents is, I think, as I said, I think the coin is worthless, but I think the blockchain and smart contracts are here to stay. I'm very optimistic about those things. And I think we're going to see newer systems coming in. On my side is the realtor side, probably on y'all's end from the financing side. And I think we're going to see more changes going forward using blockchain technology. And I'm very excited to utilize this, because, again, it will eliminate a lot of the issues that we have. But yeah, exciting stuff. But the coin ain't worth shit.
Marlon, what do you got?
Same thing. I'm not sure about the coin itself, but the blockchain technology is here to stay. I think it's going to do a lot of benefits to real estate transactions. It's going to open up fractional ownership, transparency, like you said. Money laundering is a big one. I could see that being one of the big reasons why the governments would hop on this eventually, just to keep the transactions clear. We always hear articles about real estate being one of the best ways to launder money and this and that. So obviously, that's a huge chunk of money the governments are missing on. That's an easy target right there, right? So, yep, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, we got Manny here says technology over coins. So I agree with him. And
Manny, you're a smart guy.
Yeah, good job, Manny. And definitely, my recommendation is go out and you should definitely invest in whatever Go-Shot coin or whatever that was.
Refinance your house. Buy some Doge. Smart investment.
There's no financial advice being given out on this podcast at this time. All right, guys. Thanks so much for Magic Mondays. This is a wrap. We'll see you guys.
Take care. Thank you, guys.
Take care, guys.